What if you could include all the ways that you function? What if you don't communicate in the way that you thought you did? What if other things don't communicate with you in the way you thought they did? What if other things communicate with you? What if there's all kinds of things that want to communicate with you? Beings without bodies, the entity of your business, the entities around you called furniture, the entity called your future, the entity of the life and living that you want to create. If you live cut off from your greatest ability, from your greatest capacity, which is your capacity with and as energy, if you never really learn how to use it or activate it or recognize it, will you have access to the fullness of you? This weekend for me was a huge awakening in recognizing what changes when you get a full download of how things actually function for you, a full download of what including something can create. It was a massive life shift in 27 hours, 72 hours, also dyslexic. And so I wanted to use it to invite you to a Talk to the Entities class, because this class for me was the beginning of getting access to what occurred in the last 72 hours. An access consciousness conversation never stops with the topic at hand. However, with the conversation of entities, there's a particular gift that it gives you in that the spirit world, or the world of beings without bodies, which include your business, your future, the living that you want to create for yourself, your financial reality, all of the people, all of the beings that used to be people, all of the nature spirits. I mean, it includes a lot of entities. And so it's unique in that sense because there is also a big education that occurs. That, we've cut ourselves off from the spirit world as a living element of our reality, and yet it's still there. So I would say the Access Consciousness class, this one is unique in that way, that there's some education required, but the most amazing thing about it is that it is an Access Consciousness class, meaning that as you sort of surrender to discovering and exploring what your abilities really are, how things really do work for you, you get access to that in the whole of your life. And so the class for me opened my world to being more and perceiving what I was perceiving and receiving what I was receiving. Being, knowing, perceiving, and receiving, knowing that I know. So it's amazing because once you get access to that, the rest of your life works in a really different way. How much of what people have told you things are not those things? Like a little bit, a lot, or megatons? I had a big weekend this weekend, and I want to articulate all of it for you, and I know I'm only going to be able to do it some lip service, but in and amongst some things that for some people would have meant the end of things and a huge change, I was able to ask different questions and get different information and have access to a whole other universe of choice that I just never would have had access to. And it started me really looking at what occurs when we do include rather than exclude. And that's really the conversation of Talk to the Entities. It's like, if you were to include instead of exclude how your awareness works, if you were to include the richness of the spirit kingdom and the gift that it can be to interact and engage and facilitate and be with, if you were to include the diversity, if you were to include the possibility of working with all of them and you, it's like there's so much. If you were to include all of that, how would your life change? And the truth is, you don't know. I didn't know. You don't know. It's not cognitive. It's something you have to look at and go, wow, if this is something I've been resisting and avoiding, there's something there for me. So over the weekend, one of the things that showed up for me that was super unexpected and seemed super unrelated to something that happened was that I started to really look at how I communicate. Why is this talk to the entities conversation? Because when you're looking at a class that opens you up to the possibility that you are aware of ghosts, you are aware of things that are just energy, what you're looking at is the possibility that you're not as similar to other people as you thought you were. You're different. Things work different for you. Your awareness works different for you. The way you communicate is different. And so I was driving. We did a bit of a road trip into Panama. I'm in Bihao right now. And we drove into Panama City, which is about a 2-hour drive. And I was looking at this thing that kept showing up in my world. I've been working on it for like 8 months. I've done shows about it. I've done classes on it. I've been looking at it in every direction I could possibly look at it to get change. And there's been change. But as we were driving, and you know how that is when you get busy doing something else, like your world frees up and things can show up. Driving along, and I start looking at this thing again, which is essentially like something will occur, and I would go into this kind of PTSD, anger, frustration, trapped energy, and then I would lash out from that energy. And it had taken us to the point where it had gotten, the other person receiving it was like tired, right? And as you would be. And so I was re-looking at it, I was revisiting it, because in the light of getting tired of things, said person had made different choices. And so we were shook up. And as I was sitting with this, I started to really go, like, what is this? Question. What is this? It started to occur to me that this same, like, almost raging, frustrated, like, I want to get words out of my mouth, but I can't get words out of my mouth energy it was something I'd been doing since I was 2 years old. And as that piece of information came in, you know how you get awareness and like things start to come together? I was like, oh. And what I don't even know how this occurred. And this is how awareness works. Like, you don't know how you're getting your ahas, but they just sort of like clunk into place and then change your whole life. What started to clunk into place was like, the frustration has always come from not being able to communicate. That was the only words that came through my world. I was like, I'm so frustrated that I can't communicate. I can't communicate. And this was some of the conversations that I was having with this person of like, we're not communicating. So that was interesting to me, because I was, as a 2-year-old, you're not talking in really full sentences. Like, communication isn't really a thing, right? Or is it? And all of a sudden I got it. I have never once been talking about or meaning by what I'm talking about that I can't communicate with words. My frustration has come from you, said person, mom, whoever, has disconnected from me, and now I can no longer communicate with you. And you want me to use my words, but I don't have words for what it is that I want to communicate with you. And because you will not be present with me, I cannot communicate with you. Rawr! And I'm not kidding, it was like 46 years of my life, like, got clear. And this is the gift of awareness. This is the gift of these classes, is you get to start to look at what's really true for you. So let me go further into that, because that might not seem like a big deal to you. The big deal is I had never once in my whole life acknowledged that I communicate psychically, telepathically. I've probably heard it in an access class or 25. I've probably said, oh yeah, that's totally true for me. I've probably smiled and nodded to the thing of like, oh yeah, I totally do that. But I never got it. I never got that that is my primary way of communicating. And without that, I would rather be alone in the middle of a raging hot desert, drying up from hyperventilating and dehydrating to death, than be around the closest people in my life without that psychic connection, that psychic telepathic ability. That's like how important it is to me. And I had, for one, never known that. 2, never been able to articulate it. 3, never acknowledged that that's actually how communication works for me, and that the words part is it's way too slow and way too limited. I'd never acknowledged that that's what makes what I'm able to do possible, like able to create in the world, because of the way that I communicate with people. I've never acknowledged that that's what makes facilitation easy for me. There was like 82 things that one inclusion, that one articulation of what's really true for me made easier. And it was like instantly my relationship changed. Instantly I was able to go to him and go, oh my God, I get what's been going on. I get what's happening. It's like when this and this and this occurs, you're gone. And I've been doing 2-year-old to try to get you back. And of course that's not functional. But I hadn't even recognized that this was the thing, this psychic disconnection is my best words for it right now, was the thing that I've been fighting to have. And what was so interesting about even being able to articulate with another person is that I then at that moment no longer even needed him to provide that to me, and yet being able to acknowledge it for myself made him want to provide it for me. So there was this simultaneity of richness that showed up from that one acknowledgement of how things work for me. The whole reason I'm telling you this is that I thought before that moment that I thought a whole list of other things were going on for me than what was actually going on. What was actually going on was I communicate telepathically, and when I can't communicate telepathically anymore, I've never yet until now had the skill set to go, oh, that's what's occurring. That person just can't participate in that right now. Okay, moving on. I didn't have any of that available to me. I thought I was crazy, reactive, fucked up, right? All the symptoms of unacknowledgement were the things that I thought were true about me. But in truth, I just communicate telepathically, and like when I can't do it, I wasn't able to articulate it. And so now that I can articulate it and I can identify it, then I can move on and just get that this person can't do it, and I'll go find someone who can, or I'll go enjoy myself. The power of being able to identify how you really function, what's really true for you. So what I see happen all the time with the spirit world is that we don't acknowledge that it's there. We don't acknowledge that we can hear them. We communicate telepathically. We communicate with energy. We can perceive it. We pick it up. We think that all of our entity awareness are the myriad of surface symptoms, headaches, fatigue, all these different entity symptoms. And then we never go further and look under the hood to find out if what we think is occurring is actually occurring. And so what a Talk to the Entities class starts to do is open you up to the possibility that what you think is one thing is actually another thing. And when you get to what's true, When you get to what something actually is, your whole world changes. Literally, you don't have to clear anything anymore. You don't have to do any more work. Like, once you get to what's true and you've landed on it, it goes, and your whole world just starts functioning different because you've now acknowledged what's true. So, what points of view about you in regard to entities are you defending or avoiding that hold any difficulty in your life and existence? And everything that is times a godzillion, will you destroy and uncreate it all? Right, wrong, good, bad, pop, pop, all land, shorts, boys, and beyonds. I want to read you this tiny little paragraph out of the chapter in the 10 Keys to Total Freedom, which is no exclusion. The 10th key to freedom is don't exclude anything. Don't exclude your ability. Don't exclude what you're aware of. Don't exclude that you are aware. Don't exclude the spirit. Don't exclude all these spirit kingdoms. Don't exclude the earth. Don't exclude how different you are. Explore it. Because if you can include it, you get free. There are far greater possibilities for awareness available than anyone in this reality will tell you. Awareness is the key to the freedom that you've been looking for. But because awareness is the key to being different, nobody wants you to know this. What would it be like if you stopped excluding from your life the truly amazing, infinite possibilities that can occur when you ask questions about things you would normally not ask questions about? The number of things I've gone to conclusion about is endless. But what I keep choosing into, what I keep cultivating in my world is to remember to ask, you know? And man, every new piece of information that I get about how things really work for me, because I've really been asking the universe to show me, how does my awareness work? And I'm learning so much. So ask for that if you want. Every new piece of information I get about how things actually work that weren't the way that I thought they worked. Like, I thought I was just an insane 2-year-old that grew up with a crazy mom and I just learned how to be crazy. Oversimplified the thing and never looked under the hood. The more I get that, like, no, I just communicate telepathically, and like when other people can't do it, I get so frustrated I could kill someone. But now that I know that that's what occurs, then I don't have to kill anybody, because I can recognize that they don't have that same ability and I'm just different, right? Every new piece of information that I get about that, it sets me free. And it sets me free to be me in a way that doesn't require anybody else to be me. I just get that I'm a different being. I'm a different kind of being. Things work different for me. I'm aware of different things. I talk to things. I commune with things. They speak to me. I can facilitate those things. That's my reality. I love my reality. You know, what would you need to get access to or choose into more, explore more, to love your reality? To really, really, really like being you? I'd like to warmly invite you. We start in 2 days.